Good morning. I'm Matt Driskill, editor of Asian Aviation Magazine and AsianAviation.com. Today we are in conversation with Raul Villaron, hope I pronounced that right, Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Asia Pacific at Embraer Commercial Aviation. Raul, welcome to In Conversation. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much, Matt, and happy to be here.
First of all, congratulations on the new role. I know that you're still in the Netherlands actually right now. You're getting ready to move to Singapore to take up your post. You were in the Middle East and Africa previously. Obviously, you started the new role. How are you dealing with things with COVID-19 and all of that from where you are there? And what are you looking to accomplish, or what are your priorities when you get to Asia?
Okay, so I was appointed for the role in 1st of August 2020, and since then I've been working with different time zones with the team in Singapore, which is a bit challenging, but next week I'm moving to Singapore and all of that will be adjusted. So the last few months I've been having calls with different time zones, which is complicated, and I'm looking forward to the new job. The target I have with Asia Pacific is to expand our presence there in terms of customers, partnerships, training, and so on. So Embraer is very keen on the Asia Pacific market. It's a very large market, and I would say the largest untapped market for Embraer. So we have this great opportunity, the right products, and I'm sure we have a great value proposition for our customers.
Obviously, I mean, it's you don't need to be Albert Einstein to understand it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year for the world of aviation. It's been a tough year for the world. It's been a tough year for the world of aviation. In several ways, it's been a tough year for Embraer. The company had big plans with Boeing taking the commercial aviation part. That was supposed to be a $4.2 billion deal. They actually carved out the commercial side of the aviation, and I think things shut down for about 40 days or so. And the CEO talked about this in an Aviation Week podcast the other day. How has the reintegration gone with the commercial side? And were there any Asia-specific points that were in the carve-out that were put back in or left out? And also, we might as well, your Q3 earnings just came out a few days ago. We had a net loss of 148 million US, but it wasn't all negative. I mean, there were some positives in there. You made some deliveries as well. Kind of give us, where do things stand right now?
Yeah, so we have two combined factors that are very challenging, right? First, we were disappointed with the JV termination, the deal termination from Boeing. Because we spent a lot of energy there carving out the company, creating new positions, and then now we have to carve in and we have to readjust and regain synergies we had in the past with the holding company. And we have the COVID-19 situation, which brings a huge challenge to the whole industry, as you said. So first step, once all of this came to happen, is our CEO put us together to discuss a strategy for the next 5 to 6 years. So it's our strategy 21-25. And this has been a great exercise. We believe we have a very strong strategy in front of us. Commercial aviation itself also created a strategy after the JV with Boeing didn't go through. And our main focus now are to remain leaders in regional aviation. So that's first, number one. Number two is to grow into large names, big airlines. And we have a very strong argument nowadays with the demands shrinking due to COVID times, the patterns of traveling changing due to COVID, and we believe our segment of aircraft is very well suited to the future of aviation, right? And then the third one is the partnerships, and that specific one is important for Asia, because Embraer has always been very strong and present in Europe, in the US, and now the company has great focus in Asia, and we want to grow our presence and expand our customer base through partnerships.
Well, I want to go back and we'll talk about partnerships in a little bit because it was interesting, again, back in that same podcast that the CEO did. Embraer has had to make cuts to employees and things like that. But can you talk about, and you just mentioned it, the Embraer 2125, the plan ahead for the company. Give us an idea of what that is globally and what that means for Asia Pacific.
Yeah, so the Embraer Holding strategic plan is focused on three main pillars. One is efficiency gains. Second one is sales growth through the updated product portfolio. And three is a diversification, innovation, and partnerships. So from that strategic plan of the holding company, we have our own strategic plan for commercial aviation. And one of the major focus is to expand in Asia Pacific. And that's exciting for me, right? Because I'm just joining the team. We have lots of resources and attention from the company to expand in Asia. And I'm very confident we will manage it. By the way, Embraer over the last 6 months grew its customer base by almost 60%, just adding 4 new customers. You probably heard about Bamboo starting operation with E-Jet, Myanmar International, Alliance in Australia, and just the newest one is Pioneer in Australia. So we are growing in Asia already, and the company sees great potential, right? If you think about the Embraer customer base in Asia, we have 4 customers in Australia, 6 in China, 2 in Japan, 2 in Myanmar, Taiwan, Vietnam, Mongolia, Kiribati. So it's already a large customer base, and we want to further expand that and strike some deals with big companies, big names.
Well, I was going to ask you about that with Bamboo Airways in Myanmar. I actually, like I said, did an interview with the CEO of Myanmar the other day. And it seems like the way aviation is coming back with domestic routes first, regional routes. How are you? I mean, the E-Jets are a strong product, very strong product, seem to be very popular. And they seem to be, for the load factors that we're seeing now, and probably that we will be seeing at least for the next year or 2 or even 3, would be pretty well situated for the Asian market, because you've got a lot of Indonesia, for example, lot of city pairs, not very much flying time, perfect market for an E-Jet. So do you think you can, are you positioned well enough to compete against the A320 and the MAX whenever it comes back into operation?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thanks for the question, Matt. And just going back to our discussion on the COVID impact on demand, right? It's not only shrinking the demand on specific seat pairs, but it's also changing the patterns on the way passengers fly and they want to fly. And also it's changing the way communities are organized, right? So we see that lots of people who live in big centers are now considering moving to smaller cities, their hometowns or coastal cities, because they can work from home and they can deliver the same productivity out of their homes, right? And that will already change the dynamics of mobility and specifically air transportation, right? Because we have today very well established major hubs, and this is worldwide, but more specifically to Asia, that's quite remarkable how the hubs play a big role, right? So if you consider India, for example, 50% of the traffic go through Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad, right? And this plays the same role in Asia Pacific, in ASEAN, like 50% of the capacity through Bangkok, Jakarta, Singapore, and Kuala Lumpur, Manila, and Hanoi. So those are the major hubs in Asia, and we believe that the changing patterns could actually have more hub bypass exercise from airlines. So airlines will see passengers wanting to avoid connections, and then there is a great opportunity to connect secondary cities to secondary cities without a hub in the middle. And that's where the smaller aircraft will play a bigger role in the longer term, right? In the short term now, the airlines who have flexibility and smaller aircraft in their fleet are the ones able to recover faster and preserve more cash. And that's a short, medium term, because it's for the next 2 to 3 years, the E-jets will play a big role on their financials. But on the longer term, when you consider aviation, there is this major changing flight patterns that will benefit smaller aircraft as well.
Excuse me, I turned my microphone down there because I coughed. Your CEO, and you mentioned it just now, but your CEO also in his I have to give Aviation Week credits for everything. They did a good job with the podcast. He was talking about a new partnership, and then he was also talking about turboprops. Is there anything you can talk about in that area?
Yeah, the Turboprop project is an ongoing project, understanding the market and the potential. We are very excited, especially in Asia, because there is major potential in Asia. Lots of turboprops flying around the island, hop in, hop out. And I think there's a great potential for Embraer, especially if a customer can have both the E2 and the turboprop to complement each other. So we have great hopes in Asia for the turboprop program. It's a study still, it's not a firm project, right? But Embraer has great interest in continuing studying and finding partners to do that. And that's where Asia Pacific also plays an important role, because we are looking for ways of partnering and growing our presence in Asia Pacific.
I want to ask, since we're talking about turboprops, which would be kind of a new area as well for Embraer, Airbus came out with some very nice, I mean, they have a great media department they spend a lot of money on media, on photographs and videos and renderings and everything else. And they talked about a hydrogen-powered aircraft. Embraer is also talking about sort of a hybrid hydrogen electric plane. How serious is the industry about this? And I asked this question of everybody, and I was talking to the Asia Pacific head of Airbus the other day, Anand Stanley, and I asked him, I said, look, if you were really serious about this, you would have a consortium of engine developers put together. You would have a consortium of airports. You would put a huge group together, and everybody would work together to come up with standards on storage and engine metrics and this and that and the other thing. And everybody seems to be talking about it, but nobody seems to be putting together the industry-wide partnerships that would be required to actually do this. Is Embraer serious about sort of hydrogen electric? Is it? How do you see that part of the industry developing?
Yeah, our understanding is that hydrogen is still at a premature stage. We as you say, We are working on a hybrid aircraft, electric hybrid aircraft, and we are also working on the eVTOL, right? The flying cars, let's say in a popular way, the flying cars, which is 100% electric. So we believe that the electric side of the technology is much more advanced and is doable in the foreseeable future, while the hydrogen is very premature yet. So I would Embraer is focusing on the electric specifically for these hybrid aircraft and also this eVTOL flying car concept of our newly established company, Eve.
Okay. Let's move on to another new area. And I have to ask, and sorry for my ignorance on this, are the executive jets in Asia, is that under your portfolio or does that belong to somebody else?
No, it's under Peter Grift.
Okay.
Yes, he's based in Europe. He has a team in Singapore as well, but it's not under me.
But you can speak to that a little bit. I mean, it seems like the executive side of things, the business jet is looking pretty good in Asia.
The executive jets portfolio is beautiful, right? When you look at the Phenom 100 and 300, it's a very strong product. The Phenom 300 is the best-selling aircraft in business aviation for the last 8 years, which is quite remarkable. The Praetor aircraft is also promising, right? We just launched some months ago, and it's delivering great results to the company. So I think the whole portfolio of executive jets is giving us now the returns that we expected during the investments, right? Now the portfolio is well established, the customer base is strong, and we are now leveraging from the investments we did over many years.
I want you to, we're kind of getting to the end of our time here. I know you're busy and you've got a family to move and a dog as well, I understand. So you've got a lot of paperwork to fill out to get into Singapore. Look in your crystal ball a little bit, and we all know that aviation is going to be hurting for a while. IATA, ICAO, AAPA, everybody's talking about 2024 at the earliest that the numbers will be back to pre-COVID-19 levels. I'm a little bit more cynical. I think it's going to take longer the longer this goes on. And everybody talks about the new normal with fewer long-haul routes, using more narrow bodies on longer routes. Some of that fits with your aircraft family. Some of it may not a little bit, but kind of give us your idea of what the new normal looks like, let's say 2024, and then maybe 10 years out from there.
Yeah, I believe the normal will never come back, right? There are so many structural changes that the crisis is bringing to the market that we won't see the same way of traveling as we did before. I believe the small narrow bodies will play a big role on that new normal, as well as you said, the narrow bodies flying long haul. I think the small narrow bodies like the E2, the crossover jets, will fly longer, and we have developed an aircraft that has longer range that can deliver 6-hour flights, even more than that, depending on the conditions of the airport. So our view in terms of demand is that the traffic demand will be around same levels of 2019 in 2024. However, it's a different traffic patterns, right? The size of demand will be there in 2024, but flying in a different way with different tools and with passengers more concerned about traveling time, about connections, and focusing more on direct flights. and I think we have the right products to do that. The E2, I don't know how much you know the E2, but the great advantage over the previous family is that it delivers a very attractive unit cost on top of the very famous already trip cost advantage. So the airlines that today are flying narrow bodies can still have the same unit cost as the narrow bodies, but save cash and lower their risk through having an E2 jet. So I really believe that now we have the right product for Asia. The demand patterns and the crisis has shrunk the demand, so there's no coming back of this very high growth focused on very low ticket price that's not coming back, right? And the E2 family will play a big role on that.
Let me ask you finally, I mean, and when I do these interviews, it's been very interesting. I try to look for bright spots in the industry. Everybody wants to end on a happy note, which is hard to do. I mean, this aviation has just been hammered by the pandemic, you know, and I just wrote an article that's going to be coming out in our November-December issue where I said, you know, I hope things get better, but I think they're going to get worse before they get better. But let me ask you, I mean, is there a bright spot that we can look for through all of this pain that everybody's gone through? Or is it, you know, are things just going to be bad for a long time and we just have to deal with it? I mean, is there a bright spot out there anywhere?
Yeah, I'm an optimistic, so I always like to look at the bright spots as well. I think a good area to look at is that airlines are discovering their homes, right? They are now looking at ways of using their assets, and then they are looking to their backyard instead of flying long haul, right? And a very nice example and bright example, as you asked for, is Bamboo starting operating E-jets during the crisis into markets that were never operated directly, like Hanoi to Condal. That's the first time there's a direct connection between Hanoi and Condal, giving the customer a much better experience, 2 hours less of elapsed time between Condal and Hanoi, and a growth into that market of 70% from last year, comparing to what was being served. So there is growth in the market, right? But we just have to look at our blind spot, I would say, because before you had lots of options. Now you have to focus on domestic markets, on regional markets, and maybe there are lots of opportunities that the airlines didn't consider before that could be even more profitable than their previous business.
Great. Raul Villaron, hope I pronounced that right, Vice President, Sales and Marketing for APAC at Embraer Commercial Aviation. Thanks for joining me in conversation.
Thank you very much, Matt.